Hello everyone, this is Nick from Can of Worms, and I'm here today to give you a buyer's guide to Guilty Gear Strive. Because even though I'm a massive fan of fighting games, and I actually adore playing this so far, with it being geared towards new players and attempting to get people into fighting games and into Guilty Gear for maybe the first time, a $60 investment for something that may be entirely foreign to you may be a bit of a risk for most people. So I want to show off everything that's actually in the package, what is in this product, and hopefully you can use that to determine whether or not this is $60. And if you count the season passes, that will eventually have more than a $60 investment that you may want to embark on or skip entirely. That's entirely up to you, and I think this kind of information is important for many people on a tight budget. Before we get started, I would like to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe, and if you want to hear more from me or my friends at Can of Worms, then please check out some of our other videos, and hell, leave a like and comment on those too, and we'll definitely get back to you. Recently, we've had a pretty big boom comparing to some of our other videos, and couldn't thank all of you enough. And I mean, we've doubled in 2-3 weeks, it feels like. Not a very small window, so can't thank you all enough. And I just heavily ask that you continue to view our videos, share them, and please leave a comment or a like if you like what you're hearing. So, Guilty Gear Strive, it is the newest fighting game in the Guilty Gear franchise, and there hasn't been an official sequel to a Guilty Gear game in 6 years now. The last game was Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator 2, which is an absurd name. Strive is way easier to stomach to say, but this game, for the most part, is entirely advertised to new players, and they've changed the game and the internal system mechanics in such a way to make it more encouraging for new players and make it easier to comprehend and easier to perform some of the more advanced techniques. And me personally, I may compete in tournaments, but I can tell you right now, I've lost every tournament in every game that I've ever competed in. I'm not that good at these games, I just love them. And as someone who is, I would say I'm basically like mid-range, maybe low mid-range, I'm not very good. This game is excellent in the way that it's built and the way that it's designed, even though, yes, they have changed Guilty Gear from this very, very difficult and in some cases convoluted game. They've changed it to something that's very simple, unbelievably accessible, and the learning material that's in the game is actually quite good. It's the best that the franchise has ever had. It's not the best I've ever seen in a fighting game, but it's pretty damn good. But what I'm going to go through is I'm just going to talk about all of the features of the game to really put in perspective what your $60 would be getting you if you bought Guilty Gear Strive. So in Guilty Gear Strive, there are 15 playable characters, and I've dabbled with all 15 of them at this point, and they're all quite fun. Some aren't really my style of play. I like to play characters that are very aggressive, and for the most part, I guess you could see them as short range. I'm not going to go into each character's core mechanics or where they are on a tier list or their viability in a competitive meta. None of that matters for the vast majority of people that will be buying this game. What matters is that these are 15 well-designed, awesome-looking, great-playing, unique characters. They are not Ken and Ryu, which, if you haven't played a Street Fighter game, what I'm getting at with that is Ken and Ryu are very, very similar. They have their key differences, especially as Street Fighter has evolved, but they share, I would say, 65% of a similar kit. That is not the case in Guilty Gear. There may be two characters that are of the same classification, so say Rushdown or Grappler or Zoner or whatever, but no two Rushdown characters play the same. No two average characters, I'll use in big air quotes, are the same. Soul plays differently from Kai, who plays differently from Anji, who plays differently from Mei. The entire cast is unique, and when you're getting into Guilty Gear Strive, honestly, you could just pick whichever one you think either feels nice to you, or in my case, I think Giovanna just looks awesome, and I want to play her because she's so damn cool. So outside of the characters, I'm going to go into the actual single-player content. The single-player content is actually a huge thing to talk about when it comes to fighting games, because there actually is a overwhelming majority of players who don't go online. They only play the single-player content, or in some cases they'll pick up the fighting game to maybe play the story, or just play arcade mode, or maybe they just play with their friends at a party or something. That's normal. And I think looking at what this game has to offer for single player and offline content is going to be what grabs or loses the majority of people. So, for single player, you have your typical arcade mode, which is just 8 fights back to back with your selected character, and you eventually get to the end and there's a boss fight. Whoop-de-doo, not a lot to it. The one really fun thing is, I don't know if this is true for every character, but I did play through Giovanna's or rather her arcade mode, and it was a duel fight. There was basically, in the final fight, which is like a boss fight, I had an AI character that was fighting with me, and it looked really cool and actually led to some really cool little like scramble combos that I tried to throw together. But not a lot to that. Arcade mode would probably, take you anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to beat. Nothing crazy. Something that you can do repeatedly and gain the in-game currency, which I will talk about later, for collectibles. There is the versus CPU, which is just a single battle against a CPU. Again, not a lot to really talk about with that. I actually use the versus CPU every now and then to play a couple of rounds on the max difficulty AI before I go online, and I don't really care if I get smoked or not. It's honestly just a warm-up, so it's just another mode. And the final single-player mode that is actually playable is the survival mode, which is you basically have 1 life, your HP and your meter carry over to the next round, and you just keep fighting until you eventually die, and every enemy that you face makes the difficulty go up a little more each time, and then every 10th stage, so your 10, 20, 30, 40, etc., those CPUs are even higher and actually have this really cool like dark black and red gradient to them. It's basically to make them look evil and pretty damn cool looking for real. There is one more single player mode, but it's not playable in the sense that you as a player have impact on it in any way. It's not something that you play. What it is, Guilty Gear Strive does have a story mode, but it is a story mode that does not contain fights. It is basically like watching an anime and playing through a visual novel. where there is tons of really cool stuff in the Guilty Gear story, and in this particular iteration, there's some awesome things that happen, but these are not story events that you play. You are watching all of this unfold like a movie or like an anime. So anyone who's looking for an actual story mode to play, that is not here. They made the conscious decision to not make a playable story, but a watchable story, which I personally like, because the story mode for fighting games are historically pretty boring and poor. And sometimes I just want to see what happens in the story or have it tell me what happens in the story, and I think that's fine here. The Guilty Gear world's pretty big, and the actual like ongoing like wars and threats and literal gods and demigods that come down to fight, it gets a little wacky, and honestly, I would love to see an actual Guilty Gear animated movie, just because that's how this stuff, it's so obscene and crazy that it's like watching a movie. But those are your single player features. Next, I will talk about the learning features. And I didn't know a better way to really explain it other than a category for learning. They call it the dojo, but what it is you have your training mode, tutorial, and mission mode. The tutorial is exactly what it sounds like. It's just your tutorial that teaches you how to move, how to attack, very basic functions of the video game. The mission mode is basically like your expanded tutorial, where the tutorial will teach you how to move, the mission mode will teach you how to dash. Where the tutorial shows you how to attack, the mission mode will show you how to chain attacks together or do special moves and special inputs. And as you proceed through the mission mode, it will tell you more and more advanced mechanics and build upon itself, so you can start to dive into Guilty Gear's more unique or advanced mechanics. And eventually it actually gets to the point of doing a almost like a tips section or a counterplay section for every character in the roster. There's only 2 for each character, so it'll be like, here's something you can do against Potemkin, here's something you can do against Ramlethal, here's something you can do against Kai, and you can actually select whichever character or characters that you feel like you would play in those situations, and the game will teach you, okay, this is an unsafe thing that Ramlethal can do. Here's what you can do to counter it. And as much as I do appreciate these kinds of tutorial and mission mode style things, there is no traditional combo trial mode. And what those were in previous games or previous fighting games is a series of different combos that the game pretty much suggests that you could do. Usually combo trials, they're not optimal in any way, but they can give you a good basis on how to play the character sometimes. It depends on what game it is. Some are better about it than others. But there are, I think in the mission mode, there were 2 or 3 missions out of about 100 total missions that were combo based. And even though you can select whatever character you want in those few missions, it has left myself and many others wondering, like, where are the combo trials? Because now that I know the system mechanics of the game, I want to try and learn my character in a more specific manner than what the mission mode has given me. I want to learn some combos or interactions that would be unique to them more than the 2 or 3 missions that are available. Like I said, I personally miss the combo trials because I could use those as a foundation to learn but I can also understand taking them out because I've had many friends who've started fighting games and they think, oh, I can't do this combo trial, I'll just stop playing the character because they're too hard. Arc System Works, they are trying everything they can to get people into fighting games, and that includes getting rid of historical means of learning because it may scare off some people. So maybe they're trying too hard in some regards. I actually think they are trying too hard in some regards, in a way trying to reinvent the wheel when it's not entirely necessary. The last learning mode would be the the training mode. And the training mode, if you don't follow fighting games or you don't play them, then the training mode in any fighting game is typically referred to as the lab. Think like Dr. Dre. When players say that they were labbing something or you need to lab something, what they're talking about is going into training mode and setting up a specific situation for you to learn. So in training mode, you are given a training dummy that's actually entirely, you can go into a menu and more or less program it to defend or be offensive. You can record a move. So let's say I'm playing against, let's say, Soul Bad Guy, who's probably the most popular character in the game, bar none. There's a particular move that I just need to know how to beat it because he keeps shitting on me with it. I can program the training dummy to do that on repeat. And I can sit there and I can figure out, okay, does this button beat it? No. Does this button beat it? Yes. Does this button beat it? It's kind of close. I don't like it. And you can lab that, figure it out, and use training mode to not only learn your combos, your routes, your confirms, and your core mechanics of your character, but you can also use training mode to learn how to beat other characters by making your training dummy do what those other characters do. So I won't go into too much more about that. Training mode is a training mode. Before I get into the multiplayer, I just wanted to quickly talk about the collections, because a lot of it is stuff to change the appearance of your online avatar in the lobby system, and collectible like trailers and music and art. But the music is actually a huge thing to collect in this game, because Guilty Gear, one of the most famous things about it is its soundtrack. It has probably one of the best soundtracks of any franchise, period. It goes anywhere from like a funky groovy mix to hardcore metal to a little bit of a punk feel to it, a little bit of an industrial feel to it. And the lead director of this game, and he's been over all of the games, he is a music junkie. He loves that shit. And he actually created a lot of the music in the game himself and in the games previous to this. The reason why I say all this is because you have the ability to unlock music from previous games, and when you do that, you can actually allow that music to play when you're playing the game. So you can change, let's say you're in training mode, you can change the track to something from Guilty Gear Issaka from fucking 20 years ago. Or you can change it to something from Exerd or the original Guilty Gear, or a particular song from Guilty Gear Strive that you like, which basically creates this gigantic discography of music that you can just have at any time in your matches. And that's a huge feature for a lot of Guilty Gear players. So the multiplayer is where a lot of people are going to be spending their time. Anyone who, picks up the game, and in my case, I expect to be playing this for months. I'm going to be competing in tournaments and all kinds of shit. So before I get to the online, your only multiplayer mode currently is just your default versus mode, player 1 versus player 2. And I actually feel like that's worth talking about, because I feel like they really could have fleshed out the online, or rather the offline multiplayer options more. Maybe a tag battle system or a tournament mode. Other games have done that in the past. Street Fighter V, for example, has different things that you can do in the single player and the multiplayer. Dragon Ball FighterZ, now granted this is a little bit of a different situation, but you can do a 3v3 where every person controls a different character, and you can swap in and out with your friends, and that's an online mode, but it's still an incredibly fun feature to have for friends. But now I'll move on to the big thing that has Guilty Gear Strive on many people's minds, and people won't shut up about it, and it's my favorite feature of the game when playing online, and that is this magical term called Rollback Netcode. I'm not going to go into the deep level of mechanical difference between netcodes in fighting games, so I will explain it like this. Dragon Ball FighterZ, Tekken 7, and many other popular fighting games from Japan use a system called delay-based netcode. And if you've ever seen or played a fighting game online and you see the game will freeze for a moment or stutter, or maybe it kind of feels like you're underwater and everything's just delayed, that's because it is delayed. And I won't explain why it's like that, but it feels awful. And in my case, I love Tekken 7, but I don't want to play it online as much because of how bad it can feel sometimes. Rollback Netcode not only fixes those issues, but also expands the capabilities of the game to be played internationally, or, outside of your state. I can't play Dragon Ball FighterZ with my friends that live in the same city as me without the game feeling like shit sometimes. But in Guilty Gear Strive, just this morning, I played someone in Mexico, I played someone in Europe, I played somebody in Japan, and the connection was fine. I could play the game, we both had fun. That may seem like, duh, obviously, you're playing an online game, it should feel great to play. I've played WoW with people from Mexico and Cuba and Europe and Canada. I've played Call of Duty with people overseas. I've played MOBAs with people that are in other states or other parts of the country. Yes, that's all common sense, but that's why this is a big deal, is because fighting games are finally catching up to the online infrastructure. Not to say that other games haven't done this in the past, but this is a huge step for fighting games, because what is basically happening is the players are finally getting their voices heard after a global pandemic. And there were many games that were popular tournament mainstays, such as Dragon Ball FighterZ, Tekken, Street Fighter, Smash Brothers was a huge one. Smash Brothers Ultimate, oh my god, if you have not played that game online, it is the most abysmal feeling. I'd rather have the flu every day for the rest of my life than play Ultimate online again. When COVID hit, obviously we couldn't go to local tournaments or major tournaments anywhere in the world, so we had to play online. And what that showed many developers is, hey, we need to really start caring about our online to not only make our player base happy, but also extend the lifeline of our game because people are still playing it. They're not dropping it because it feels like shit. And that is a huge thing. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is probably the biggest example that I can think of an amazing game to play. I absolutely adore that game. It was my first tournament game. Jesus Christ, if I have to play that game online another day of my life, I may just off myself. I hate it. Guilty Gear Strive does not have that problem. It corrects all those problems, and is going to have a longer lifeline than many other current fighting games because of this rollback netcode. Alright, all of that being said, there are 3 ways to play the game. You have your, I guess you can call it like a ranked lobby. Instead of a number, like your, 500,000 out of a million on a leaderboard, what they have is a floor-based ranking system. There are 11 floors, so you can say 11 ranks, and you continue to win on either that floor or a floor above your rank. Keep ranking up, get to floor 10. If you continue to win, the 11th floor is a floor called Heaven. If you lose 2 matches in Heaven, you get kicked out, and you have to win your way back into Heaven. And if you win, I can't remember if it was 3 or 5 games in a row in Heaven. And actually, I don't think it has to be in a row. I think you just have to win, I believe it's 5, but you have to not lose 2. It's very similar to playing competitive in Destiny, if you've ever seen that, where there's like a particular tower that you can only gain access to if you are very successful in trials. But it's similar to that, where if you do win enough in Heaven, you unlock the ability to get in and out of Heaven whenever you feel like. Eventually, they're thinking about putting in rewards for the players that can do that. And by God, before Season 1's over, I'm going to be one of those players. I just have to not suck shit. But if you don't want to play ranked, which many people don't, they have lobbies that are called parks. Basically, those are rooms that can hold 32 people maximum, and it's basically your public matches. People can hop in and out of those public servers as they please and match up with people and just keep playing as much as they want. Rematch them. I mean, hell, I have a video here where I get slapped by this Anji player for 20 rounds. He just absolutely dog-washed me. But we both had fun because the game was stable. We were, both learning things, and, hey, I'll get smacked around for 30 minutes or more if it's fun, especially while I'm learning the game. The third lobby that's in the game is similar to the parks. You can set up a private lobby. You can put passwords on it. You can make it to where friends only can enter. You can make it public, and then it functions similar to a park, but it's just another lobby that's mainly used for private lobbies. So it's like, in my case, like if I wanted to play with 4 of my friends, then we would create a private lobby and then hop into it. Nothing crazy about that. Those are all of the features for Guilty Gear, and I know I've been talking for 30 minutes now, but I wanted to touch on every one of these because that's it. Is that enough for you to buy Guilty Gear? That's up to you to decide. For me, I've made my choice. It's enough for me to play the game non-stop because I absolutely love the gameplay itself. But I wanted to remove the mechanics. I wanted to remove the gameplay from Guilty Gear Strive and tell you plain as day, this is what's in the game. And if you've never bought a fighting game before, or maybe you haven't played one in a long time, this is what's on the table. And the gameplay does carry what would be considered a lack of features compared to other major titles. If you compare this to a Call of Duty, to a Battlefield, to another AAA title, this is not exactly the most robust thing in the world, but the mechanics, the characters, the music, the gameplay, when you're actually fighting somebody or even just fighting a computer, really does carry the game, because that is what fighting games are. They're very similar to MOBAs, for example, like League of Legends. League of Legends, when you strip out the gameplay and look at just the features, there's not really anything there. It's a product that's entirely built upon you wanting to play the game, or wanting to play with friends, or wanting to learn and become better. If that's not something you're interested, then save your $60. And as much as I love this game and I love fighting games, I would hate to see somebody spend $60 on a product they don't want. So with all of that being said, I just have a few more closing notes and then I swear I'm done. This is going longer than usual, but I just wanted to be totally blunt with what's in this game. So now that we've covered the features and everything, I just want to go over a few myths that I've actually heard in my personal life from people either looking to get into Guilty Gear or getting into any fighting game. And these are myths that either they buy a game and don't play it online because of a handful of reasons, or they don't buy the game because of these notions, these rumors, these beliefs of fighting games and fighting games communities. So the first myth is, I don't want to play the game or go online because I'm at a disadvantage because I am new to the game. I don't play fighting games as much as some of these sweaty monkeys in these online lobbies. Is that true? Yeah, absolutely. No shit. You're gonna get dog washed if you've never played a game before and you go against someone who's played them for years. That's the learning process. I'm getting dog washed by an Angie player for 20 rounds. He whooped my ass for like 40 minutes. And I had tons of fun doing it because I didn't give a crap about winning, because these are public lobbies. I don't get rank points for this. This is a learning experience for both of us, and we're having fun doing it. Not to mention the gameplay was just so crisp, like no lag. We were having a great time. But let me compare Guilty Gear Strive to Call of Duty 4 for a moment. A popular game that people who weren't familiar with first-person shooters back in the day on the Xbox 360 and PS3, they got this game because it was the hottest damn thing on the market. And if you are not familiar with Call of Duty or not familiar with first-person shooters, but that was the first really big one that you played and that you played online, when you pop in that disc, did you know the difference between the M4 carbine and the M16? Or why Deep Impact would be better on this map and why Steady Aim would be better on another? No, you played the game and you found it out. And did you probably get absolutely clapped by someone who did know these things? Yes, they killed you over and over and you felt terrible about it. And honestly, sometimes, getting through those feel-bads because you're getting whooped is part of the experience, and I personally like that experience. If that's something that would deter you from the game, then, honestly, save your money, because you are going to lose. You are not Floyd Mayweather. You will get clapped, especially if you're a new player. I'm getting clapped, and I've played Guilty Gear for fucking 6 years now. Another myth is character selection. What if I pick a bad character? Or what if I'm losing matches because there are better characters than mine? And is that the case? Yes. For the 1% of players that make it to the top 64 of EVO, yes, a character selection can make a huge difference to those people. Does it make a difference to me and you? Hell no. I suck at the game. You suck at the game more than likely, or you've never played the game. Your character selection isn't going to make you better or worse. It's all going to come down to game knowledge and fundamentals. And You picking a better character because they're higher on a tier list isn't going to make you better at the game or perform any better. If you can't perform well for one way, on one character or another, you're probably going to perform poorly on another character if you don't learn them properly. Character selection doesn't matter that much for the unbelievable vast majority of players. Pick who you like, pick who's cool, play what you want. Who cares? And the big one, this is actually one that I hear all of the time from my friends sometimes, is I don't use an arcade stick, or what's commonly referred to as a fight stick. And I'm at a disadvantage because of that. I'm just using my measly PS4 or PS5 controller, and that's honestly the stupidest argument I've ever heard. Because was there a time where that may have been the case? Yes, and that was almost 10 years ago. Video game developers, especially fighting game developers, know that the overwhelming majority of players are going to be playing the game using the controller that came with their console. So they have made these games, these new fighting games, accessible for controller, and they're built in such a way to where it's actually preferable for players to use a controller. And actually, for a good example, Mortal Kombat 11, I only play on controller. Tekken 7, I only play on controller. I only use my big stupid arcade stick because it's something I've used for going on 11 years now. It's just what I'm comfortable with, and that's just what it comes down to. Use what's comfortable for you. If you feel like you want to drop a couple $100 on an arcade stick and learn how to use a new tool, great, do it. Don't feel like that's a gateway into the game, though. You can pick up my damn near 5-pound controller and do worse than you've ever done with a controller, because all a controller is a tool. Doesn't matter the button layout, doesn't matter how big or heavy or light it is. It is just a tool, and you use whatever tool is comfortable for you. And the last thing I want to talk about is just the fighting game community in general. The fighting game community is one of the friendliest online communities I've ever been a part of, and there's just an unbelievable amount of support out there between YouTube videos, Reddit threads, online websites that give all kinds of knowledge on characters and matchups and everything you need to know about the game. And to go even further with it, there are Discord servers committed to individual characters, run by community members, run by fans. And, if there's a streamer you like and they have a Discord, they probably also have a chat room full of people talking about matchups, talking about characters, talking about games, looking to play games. You don't have to jump into these giant lobbies, and I understand the anxiety that you can get when you play online, but honestly, you can hop into a Discord server on any of these free Discords and talk to a friendly person that maybe they want to get in voice chat, maybe they don't, maybe they just want to play a few rounds. This Angie player, part of the reason why I got clapped by him 20 games in a row is because I've never played against an Angie at this point in the game. So I wanted to keep losing and keep playing against this person to figure out what I can do to beat him. Because if it works against him, it may work against other Angie players. And these Discords and these communities are built on that premise. Learning with each other, having fun with each other, and building a community. That's what it's all about. But, other than that, please look in the description of this video if you want to see more content from other fighting game creators. And if you want to learn more about what Rollback Netcode is, because that's the big buzzword with this game, is Rollback Netcode, I have a link to a Core A gaming video who is an awesome creator for fighting game content. He explains it very well. And if you want to really go down the rabbit hole, in the description of his video, there is a 30-minute video from a man named Keats, who is a fighting game community member and one of the designers for Killer Instinct 2013 on the Xbox One. And he goes into extraneous detail about the whole thing because he built this game with Rollback Netcode in mind, and he is a person in the industry who deals with this shit, so he knows a lot about it. But other than that, bless you if you've gotten through all 40 minutes of me rambling about Guilty Gear Strive. But hopefully this is information on, this is what you need to know about the game, and hopefully I've talked some people into buying it, and if not, hopefully I've talked people into saving money into a game that they feel they would be more comfortable with. This is Nick from Can of Worms signing off, and once again, please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear more from us, and thank you so much for stopping by.